big events are being run almost like pilot events, and it's rigorous testing to get into one of those events. And hopefully what that means is if we can prove that 20,000 fans can go to see a football match and come home and there isn't a spike in cases, then sports days will be relaxed and the rules around schools will be relaxed, because nobody's asking all of the parents to take a lateral flow test. I mean, maybe they could. Maybe
well, I'll tell you what, if I was a parent in that situation, I'd be willing to.
Exactly.
Show it when you get
do you know, I think I take that point, and I've taken part in pilots. I went to the Brit Awards this year, which was a very big government pilot as well, because we want music festivals and big venues. But I think Susanna hit the nail on the head with the phrase, one rule for one group, one rule for another. I think a lot of people who have been incredibly good and incredibly diligent, their patience is freeing now. And I think, I'll tell you the other thing, which I think was a bit tone-deaf as well, was that when the G7 summit was happening as well, a lot of people, you know, I was getting messages into my radio show going, hang on a minute, is this entire, like, jamboree sort of necessary, when at this point people couldn't even have more than 30 people at their wedding?
You're absolutely right in that. I'm a great fan of Matt, the cartoonist in The Telegraph. He sums it up very nicely today with his cartoon, bride-to-be in the bridal shop, trying on her wedding dress, and she's saying, we're having 30 guests at the reception, plus 2,500 UEFA VIPs.
Yeah. He is brilliant, isn't he?
Isn't he great?
Matt is one of the truly great cartoonists.
Terrific. It says it all
because
in
he
one
sums
cartoon.
up exactly what we think.
The other thing we have seen, Aisha, from the G7 is a huge spike in cases down in Cornwall. Now, what they're suggesting is it wasn't the people at the G7, but those cases have come because of maybe it's the infrastructure that had to be put up, all of the events that were done, the staff that had to be brought in to put up marquees and all that sort of, the rigmarole that goes with it.
Yeah, there's a whole business that comes around when, you know, when the sort of show comes into town. I just feel that so many people just are at that stage now where they are thinking, hang on, there are double standards here. I mean, one of my friends who's a great journalist tweeted yesterday, in fact, watching the football, look, I'm not against the football, but my daughter's not even allowed to play with her friends, you know, in the way that she wants to. And I think for a lot of young people as well who've really had a hard time, and families that have had a hard time, they are a bit like, guys, this doesn't pass the smell test, come on.
All those people...
Sorry, Jeffrey, I was just going to say, Alex Macheras, who's an aviation journalist and researcher who we talk to a lot on this programme, tweeted, reaction to the UK government UEFA quarantine exemption news from one UK airline chief executive who messaged him to say, good luck to the government in their attempts to even begin trying to tell our passengers that they still need to self-quarantine upon arrival. Now, that's a serious problem.
It's an industry with 200,000 people who are losing jobs and not getting into the air. Why shouldn't we go abroad ourselves if they can come to us? Why are we told? We're going to be told this afternoon in Parliament which countries we're allowed to travel to.
Yeah.
Well, the Greeks and the Spaniards are begging us to come back. The industry, the aircraft industry, is begging to be allowed to take off, but they're watching 2,000 people come in to watch a UEFA match.
Well, let's talk about this Delta Plus variant then, Dr. Hillary, because, of course, lots of people will be waiting, as Jeffrey said, to hear that announcement, which countries are going to go onto the list, whether if you've been double jabbed, whether you'll be able to go to an AMA country and not have to isolate. But the concern will be the Delta Plus variant that has been identified, the implication of that, and also our cases are up to 16,000, is that right?
Absolutely. So the Delta variant has been identified at least 41 cases throughout the UK. Now, is that of concern? Yes, it is. Why? Because, first of all, it's more transmissible than the original Delta variant, which in itself was 60% more transmissible than the original Kent variant, which dominated in this country. So it's more transmissible. Secondly, it tends to bind more closely to receptors in lung tissue. So it's likely to be more virulent. And thirdly, the antibody response might be lower against this particular double mutation variant. So it combines the South Africa variant with the variant which originated in India. And that seems to be spreading. It is now dominant in Portugal, for example, which was taken off the green list for that reason. And this is why countries like Germany are saying we will quarantine Brits coming into our country because they could bring the...
This is interesting, Jeffrey, because Angela Merkel says she wants other EU countries to now quarantine Brits going abroad. You say those EU countries are desperate for us to go. they're not going to introduce quarantine if they need the tourism, are they?
No,
it's just a constant.
She's having a bad week. I'm a true admirer, to be honest. Think she's been a great leader of Germany. But two things she's done this week. One, that. And secondly, as important, she's now going to have talks with the Russians. Thank you very much indeed, after what happened last night. Why? Because they get their oil from Russia, so they'll go on chatting. And the French, too, are going to hold a meeting with them this week. We should be boycotting the Russians. Putin is an evil man, and what he does... Only 2 weeks ago in the G7, when I sat here, he was saying, been very constructive talks, and I believe we can go forward together. And you've all seen the headlines in the press this morning.
HMS Defender,
hang on, Jeffrey.
Russian military.
Joe Biden met with Putin because he wants to try and have better relations. I mean, you do have to try and get on with people who you have profound disagreements with.